Ezekiel, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Drew. And thank you, Martin and Allison. That was great sharing on presentations and the webinars. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your
Yeah.
screen.
Okay, so I had this idea like a few days ago, and really the reason why I'm taking this time to share is because we always observe that during the early track and the late track, a lot of coaches end up being overwhelmed with the volume of the reports that they need to handle. And they end up submitting their reports late, or they just aren't really prepared to deal with the entire grading process, even after we have already given the grading training, how to give feedback and so on and so forth. And so I thought that it might be helpful to, bring you all up to speed on perhaps just some general tips on how you might be able to improve your grading system and actually think about an actual system and process when you do your grading, but also even for the experienced graders, right? You've been doing this for many years and many semesters, or it's not your first time doing it. You know what it already feels like. But have you considered potentially bringing AI into your workflow and looking at the opportunities in which it could help you become more efficient, but also not trading off the entire learning experience of doing the report evaluations and learning to judge? Because now, as we transit to a more AI centered world. And a lot of the world roles that we are doing will involve you having to use AI in your work. It's helpful to know how to be a good judge. And the point of the report evaluation exercise is we know that you can already use AI in its current state to entirely automate the report evaluation. In fact, some professors are already known for using AI entirely to grade, students' works and give feedback. And if you were to entirely use AI to generate the feedback, evaluate it, and give the grades, I don't think that we could detect it if we were being completely honest. But I think the point of this report evaluation is not to do that, but rather you have this opportunity to improve your business judgment by going through the report evaluation exercise, learning from that process, and you have also an opportunity to explore the use of AI in this workflow. And so I came up with a little grading trainer guide where you could explore three ways to grade, right? One way is entirely manual. The second way in the middle is AI assisted. And the third way would be kind of like fully AI, although I don't think this is truly fully AI yet, but it's as far as you could go with it in without being too technical. So I think, and I'll share this guide with you because it's an interactive worksheet. You can use it to plan your process. So the first thing I think, especially if you are someone who is new to this grading process, is you will be given a lot of reports to deal with, right? And you need time to go through those reports, whichever method you use. And especially if you're new, I recommend you at least try to do it manually first. But firstly, think about what you actually need in order to grade that, right? You in the past, when you were writing the report, you look at the challenge instructions. Some of you may not know, but we do have a agriculture education YouTube where there is typically VAS and the client is already on that video talking about it. So I have an example here with one of the clients we have for early track, which is advanced super abrasives. So if you go to YouTube and you look up this channel called agriculture education, and it may take you some effort, but you can just scroll through and look at the videos. There are actually company introductions to all of them. And in that introduction, you get a lot of rich details about the client challenge that aren't known or exposed during with the challenge instructions itself, right? So it's helpful for you to also read or at least listen to the company introduction because that may give you hints on where the client is really more interested in that isn't expressed in the challenge instructions. Okay. And the first thing, as Martin emphasized, is to plan, right? but a lot of us, when we grade, we're just going to go in, hey, I'm going to start grading. What's the instruction? I'm just going to start grading, right? But perhaps take a step back and think, how much time do you expect to take when you're actually going to grade? And so in this interactive worksheet, I give you kind of like three potential personas. If you're the first time grader, maybe it would take you up to 45 minutes even, right? So give yourself a bit more time. And if you have done the practice with Sonia, where you had those three reports, I don't know, I can't recall how far along it is in the process. From there, you get a sense of how fast you are in your process, right? And so you may be able to see roughly how long you think you're going to take, right? And play around with it because that gives you a sense of what's your baseline. So if you have 10 reports, you need to multiply that time by 10, right? Logically speaking. And so are you allocating yourself enough time during that 1 to 2 weeks where you have to grade, enough time to cover those 10 if you have 10? And if you have not allocated that time, then you're setting yourself up naturally for failure, right? So it's kind of just a basic check. And how you can do that is a little worksheet over here where you can fill in, hey, I'm going to start at, 14, maybe 14th of March today, and I'm going to start it at this time. How much time do you have? Do you have 2 hours, 3 hours, or 1 hour even, right? And how many reports are you going to target? So if you're going to target 5 reports, then you're actually trying to do 12 minutes per report on average. And this will vary, right? But this could be a handy guide to kind of just at least give you a mental model of how long will it really take, right? How much time are you planning for yourself to go through this exercise? And, are you going to have some great breaks in between? Because it's going to be a long session. And think about what is the information that you need. Just kind of like have a little checklist in mind of what are the things you could do. So it could be things like, have you read the rubrics? You know the grade instructions, especially the new grade instructions this time around. Have you reviewed the client video? You read the challenge instructions? Your scoring sheet, the Excel is ready. Um, an idea of having an anchor report, choose one report that is kind of like the anchor for you to calibrate your scores and, other things, right? So you can also put observations that you have found from looking through the information that you might want to pay attention to. And maybe just having a guide and a planner to just think through the process before you actually get started could actually make you much more efficient and effective during your grading exercise, right? The second step then is actually to grade, right? So I think these are pretty standard, but I would suggest that you go about it with a two-pass approach. And so I don't know if you all are aware about learning models and things like this, but the first pass, normally if you want to digest deep information very quickly, we do a very first pass, but we skim through all of the headers and we maybe read the executive summary, but we don't actually read it like a storybook from start to end, right? We actually target to just get a high level structure and sense of the entire report. And if you're really advanced, just by reading the headings, you more or less know what score you're going to give already. And then you're just going to targeted sections to see the quality of the arguments and so on, right? But generally, do a first pass to get a quick sense of everything, a loose first impression, and then you go and target in detail, and then you do the deep reading. That's generally how you try to digest deep information, technical information fast, right? You can use AI to support you in this process, and I'm going to show you particularly Notebook LM, which is Google. So for me, if I was going to set up this process now, in the past I wouldn't do this, but now that I have Google LM, I can assemble all of the things that I need. I'm going to put in the challenge instructions, the webinar recording. I'm going to put in even the website of the client company so that I can quickly check facts on whether the website actually supports the evidence that the student is giving, right? You can even research the data and say, hey, has the client already mentioned this? So is the student just basically copy and pasting what the client is saying and putting it there, and there's no original thought, right? So there's a lot of interesting things that you can do with AI tools right now. Assemble your sources in a Notebook LM, question it. Of course, it's better if you already know the content and you've reviewed it, but you may not have the time to do it. And that's where AI can help you on some aspects of it. And then finally, kind of the scoring and feedback. So I won't go into the details here because we're at time, but think about one thing that is a bit more advanced is internal consistency, which is this thing like, does the executive summary, does it reflect the quality that you're seeing in the rest of the sections? Right. So it's a bit weird, if the executive summary is really good, but the internals of section one, two, and three are odd. Maybe they just wrote some fluff in section one, two, and three, and then they just put it into AI to generate the summary. And that would kind of suggest some inconsistencies. Right. So these are kind of like additional in-depth tips of like things you should watch out for in a consistent report, right? Uh, Things like how does, would it make sense like for marketing, they chose to identify a B2B niche, right? And it's a bit, and they want the client to target a specific subset of the SMB market, right? So it's a business challenge. But then their proposal is targeted at TikTok, which is consumer facing. So these kinds of inherent contradictions may be something that might be helpful for you to look at. So yeah, I think this is an opportunity for you to explore the use of AI in your grading process, but maximize this opportunity. I will share this file. It's a web page, but if you download it and open it up, you can actually go in, read it, and you can engage with it like a normal website, and you can type and use the worksheet. So hopefully, this is something that will help you in your process of grading. Any questions or thoughts, ideas on how you would like to structure your grading process or your own tips for the more experienced folks?
Well, in terms of tips, because as a instructor, as a professor, I do have to evaluate like 70 reports from different clients. Like the good thing as a coach for you is that you are only assigned report from one client. So you are not burdened to go through different clients. But since this video will also be shared with other instructors, what I generally do is I like time bound myself like this day it's or like this 2 days I'm only going to evaluate reports from this client. And then I have already gone through the recording, gone through the general instructions, and I am able to also observe the patterns among the reports. And then I make my notes. I don't use it to evaluate the report for me, but I use LLM just to fine tune my feedback. So I have some pointers I want to give to the student, and I just use them to give it to the LLM, make it a sandwich feedback, and then it comes back with a pretty impressive, much better than I would have drafted. I just fine tune it if it need be, and then voila. In terms of, so for me, I will be situated in between, being augmented, not completely replacing my judgment to the AI. And this particular framework which you developed, Ezekiel, I absolutely love it. And the people who love structure, who love to plan ahead, want to use their planner to see how much time they will need per report. Uh, I mean, that could be really game changer for them, specifically if they're the ones with Pomodoro kind of thing that they set aside time and then
Yeah.
working on it. Okay. I'm not sure if there's any questions.